My name's Ethan. I'm 26, live in Boston, and I work as a UX designer at a mid-sized tech startup. Clean code, long nights, cold brew. My days are predictable. Or they were. This is the story I've never told anyone. Call it, I went to see my friend's mom. She closed the door and whispered, "Don't tell anyone." It starts in late November, just before Thanksgiving. The cold hadn't fully set in, but the wind had that warning bite. You know, the kind that sneaks under your collar and whispers, "You're not ready for what's coming." I hadn't seen Daniel in weeks. He was my best friend through college, roommates, thick as thieves, all that. But after he moved to Seattle for a grad program and I stayed here working, things drifted. He'd flown in to visit his mom in Cambridge and texted me a quick, "Bro, swing by. Mom still makes killer lasagna. You're basically family." Daniel's mom, Margaret, had always been elegant. That's the word. Quiet, composed, the kind of woman who could say more with a glance than most people do with 10 sentences. She used to be an art historian, the kind who could talk about Monet and then roast you for not recognizing a sergeant. So that night I drove over. Felt strange, pulling into that familiar driveway again. I'd spent entire summers there during college. Barbecues, late-night movies, us crashing on the couch talking about life and heartbreak like we knew a damn thing about either. I knocked on the door. It opened just a crack. And then fully. Margaret stood there, hair slightly longer than I remembered, a cream cardigan pulled tightly over her blouse. Her eyes, those deep, knowing hazel eyes, met mine. And for a second I felt unprepared. "Ethan," she said. "You came." I nodded, a bit awkward. "Of course. I mean, Daniel said." She stepped aside to let me in. Daniel had to go to the airport early. Emergency with his roommate. But he wanted you to come anyway. Said you'd understand. I paused. "He's not here." "No," she closed the door behind me. Then she leaned in, closer than I expected, and whispered, "Don't tell anyone you came." I froze. "What?" She pulled back like nothing had happened. "Lasagna's in the oven." I didn't know what to say. I followed her into the kitchen, heart pounding. Not sure if I'd misheard, or if something deeply wrong was unfolding. The house smelled of rosemary, garlic, and fresh paint. That was new. There were canvases leaned against the far wall, Margaret's, I guessed. Paint smeared on the edges, bold brushstrokes, abstract shadows. She caught me staring. I started painting again. After my sabbatical. I nodded. "They're intense. I like them." She poured 2 glasses of wine, handed me one, and sat across from me at the kitchen island. The way she looked at me, it wasn't maternal. It wasn't even nostalgic. It was present, and that scared me more than anything. I tried to lighten the mood. "So, how's Daniel doing? Is everything okay with the flight?" She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "He'll be fine. He always finds a way to escape when things get too close." I blinked. "Close?" She tilted her head. "You never noticed it, did you? The way he keeps people just far enough away so he doesn't have to tell them the truth." "The truth about what?" Margaret stood, walked over to the oven, took out the lasagna. Her hands didn't shake, but mine did. "Sit," she said gently. "Eat with me." We ate mostly in silence, but the tension was thick. My brain ran wild. Was Daniel in trouble? Was she protecting him? Was this about something darker? But I couldn't ask, not yet. Halfway through the meal, she finally spoke. "You're not like him, Ethan." I set my fork down. "I don't understand. You see things. You feel. That's rare, especially in men your age." The compliment hit strange, like it was laced with something else. I looked up and found her eyes already on me. "You ever feel like the world expects you to stay silent?" she said. "To never say what you're actually thinking because people can't handle it?" "All the time," I said before I could stop myself. We stared at each other for a beat too long. I stood. "I should go." She walked me to the door. And then, just before I reached for the handle, she touched my wrist. "I meant what I said earlier," she whispered again. "Don't tell anyone you were here." I opened my mouth, but no sound came. I left. I sat in my car for 10 minutes, engine off, heart racing, staring at the darkened house. I didn't understand what had just happened, but something told me I wasn't supposed to, and yet I knew I'd be back. The story doesn't end there. That night cracked something open. I didn't sleep that night. Margaret's voice echoed in my mind like a song I couldn't turn off. Don't tell anyone you were here. It wasn't a plea. It was a command, and it carried the weight of something buried, something unspeakable. The next day at work, I couldn't focus. I kept checking my phone, wondering if Daniel would text. He didn't. He hadn't even told me he left early. Something about that didn't add up. By noon, I found myself pacing around the office hallway, pretending to be on a call. My coworker Jamie caught me zoning out at the coffee machine and said, "You okay, Ethan? You look like you saw a ghost." I smiled weakly. "Yeah, just weird night." She smirked. "Weird or good weird?" I didn't answer, because I honestly didn't know. 3 days passed. I didn't hear from Daniel or Margaret. I kept telling myself to forget it, but I couldn't. That night at her place had carved into me like a blade dulled by restraint. Then Friday evening, around 8:15 p.m., I got a text. "Margaret, can you come?" Just that. No emoji. No explanation. I didn't hesitate. When I arrived, the house was dimly lit, save for one golden lamp in the living room. She opened the door slower this time. Her eyes looked tired, but not surprised. "I wasn't sure you'd come," she said softly. "You knew I would." She gave a sad smile and stepped aside. Inside, the room felt different, more vulnerable. A half-drunk glass of red wine sat on the coffee table. Her hair was down, curling around her shoulders. She wasn't dressed up, just a black turtleneck and jeans. But she looked beautiful in that sharp, delicate way some women do when they stop pretending to hide. "I needed someone to talk to," she said. "Someone who wouldn't lie to me." I sat on the couch, my heartbeat too loud in my chest. "What's going on, Margaret?" She sat across from me but didn't speak right away. Instead, she reached behind the side table and pulled out a small framed photo. It was old Daniel, maybe 16, smiling awkwardly next to a man I didn't recognize. "My husband," she said. "Daniel's father." I nodded. "I never met him." "No. He died before you two became close." She took a sip of her wine. "He wasn't a good man, Ethan. He hid behind his charm. But inside he was cruel. To me. To Daniel." I felt the tension tighten in my chest. "I'm sorry." She nodded, like she'd heard those words before from people who never truly meant them. I stayed because I thought love meant endurance. That if I just loved harder, he'd change. But all I did was teach Daniel how to run from truth. I didn't know what to say. My image of her, Margaret the composed, the wise, shattered into something far more human, far more haunted. "I started painting after he died," she continued. "I thought it would be therapeutic, but it only brought everything to the surface." Her eyes met mine then, and I saw something that made my breath catch. Longing, maybe, or loneliness dressed up as courage. "You remind me of someone I used to believe in," she whispered. The room grew smaller, the silence louder. "I don't know if I should be here," I said, standing. "But you are," she said simply. I took a shaky breath. "Are you okay, Margaret?" She smiled. "No, but I'm better when you're around." That's when I realized something terrifying. This wasn't about Daniel anymore. It was about us. Something unspoken simmering beneath every glance, every silence. I should have walked out then, but I didn't. She reached out and gently touched my hand. "Stay, just for a while. No expectations." I stayed. We didn't kiss. We didn't touch beyond that one brief moment. But we sat together on the couch, the lamp casting soft shadows on the walls, her shoulder just inches from mine, our silences weaving into each other like threads of a tapestry neither of us understood. When I finally left, she walked me to the door again. This time, she didn't say, "Don't tell anyone." She said, "Next time, maybe you'll stay longer." I drove home with trembling hands. I didn't know if I was falling into something beautiful or walking straight into a storm, and I still hadn't heard a single word from Daniel. That silence was the loudest thing of all. It was a week before I heard from Daniel. The message came in while I was brushing my teeth. Daniel, yo. Sorry I vanished. Long story. Can we talk? I stared at the screen, foam in my mouth, a pit in my stomach. Something told me this wasn't about his roommate or a missed flight. He knew. We met at a cafe near Harvard Square, the kind we used to hang out at back when our biggest problem was whether our fake IDs would work at the bar next door. He looked older, more distant, the kind of tired that didn't come from jet lag but from knowing something that crushed you from the inside out. He didn't even sit down fully before asking, "You've been to the house, haven't you?" I froze. "Yeah, you told me to. Said your mom had lasagna and..." He cut me off. "I didn't. I never sent that text." I blinked. My heart thudded in my ears. "What are you talking about? It came from your number." He pulled out his phone, tapped something, turned the screen toward me. "Daniel, this number's been inactive since my phone broke in Seattle. I've been using a different SIM for 2 weeks." I felt the room tilt. My voice was barely a whisper. "She sent it." Daniel stared at me, then looked away, running a hand down his face. "I thought so. What's going on, Daniel?" He leaned in, quiet but sharp. "She's not well, Ethan. She hasn't been for a while. After my dad died, something inside her changed. It wasn't grief. It was like she finally let go, but in the wrong direction." I listened in stunned silence. "She isolates," he continued, "invites people over and makes them feel important, needed. Then she pulls away, like she wants them to love her just enough to leave them first." "Jesus," I muttered. Daniel stared at me. "She's done this before. Once, with one of my friends back in high school." He didn't tell me until years later. Said she kissed him, then told him he imagined it. He ended up in therapy. My chest felt like it was being crushed. I started, but the words caught in my throat. "She has a way of finding the cracks in people. She doesn't mean to hurt anyone, but she doesn't know how not to." I sat back, dizzy with shame. I thought I was helping her. I don't know what I thought. He sighed. "You're not the first, and she's not evil. She's just broken in a way I can't fix." We didn't speak for a while after that. Eventually, Daniel said, "I'm putting her in an outpatient program." She agreed barely, but she needs boundaries and honesty. He looked at me again, really looked this time. "Whatever happened between you two, just let it go." I nodded. "I will," but I didn't. Not really. I never saw Margaret again. A few weeks later, I got a small envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside was a single folded piece of canvas, torn from the corner of a painting. A painted I stared back at me. Deep hazel, bold strokes, edges frayed. And underneath, scribbled in faded pencil, "I remember who you are." I don't know what she meant by that. I don't know if she meant it as a thank you or an apology. All I know is, I still think about her. Not because I loved her. I didn't. Not really. But because she showed me something most people never do. She showed me how thin the line is between loneliness and longing. How easily affection can become a mirror for pain, for beauty, for the things we hide. And maybe the most haunting part? I think in some twisted way she wanted to be caught. She wanted someone to see her. Not as a mother. Not as a widow. Not as a story half told. But as a woman, desperate not to disappear. Not every connection is meant to last. Some exist only to awaken you. To show you your own reflection through someone else's brokenness. It took me months to understand this. Just because someone opens the door to you, doesn't mean you're meant to walk in. Sometimes the most powerful love is the kind that knows when to leave. Quietly, before you become part of someone else's undoing.